And good evening from downtown Covington. I'm Michael Monk's continuing coverage of primary election 2022 from Link NKY. This is our Kentucky Senate District 24 Republican Primary Forum. As always, I'm joined by Link NKY politics and government reporter Mark Payne. Good evening, Mark.
Thanks for having me, Michael. Good evening.
And we want to let you know that this is the fourth forum of our series so far. You can catch the other ones if you might have missed them at linknky.com, watch the video, or download them and listen to them as a podcast. This one will also be available for your friends who might miss it this evening, so be sure to let them know about that. Tomorrow, we'll have the Republican candidates from House District 69, and then on Thursday, the candidates for Newport City Commission. And again, this is the Republican Forum for Kentucky Senate District 24. We will be welcoming the candidates momentarily. The way this works is we give each candidate 1 minute for their opening remarks, and then Mark Payne and I will have a series of questions for these candidates in which they will have 1 minute to respond. If one candidate should mention another candidate in their answers, then that mentioned candidate will have the opportunity for a 30-second rebuttal if that is necessary. And so without further ado, we'll get started. We will be alternating who goes first, second, and third throughout the course of the events, but we will start by first saying good evening to everyone. And our candidates tonight are Shelley Funke Frommeyer, Chris Robinson, and Jessica Neal. I open the floor for Shelley Funke Frommeyer to deliver her opening remarks. Shelley, you have 1 minute.
Michael, thank you. And Mark, thank you as well, Link NKY. So my name is Shelley Funke Frommeyer, and I'm running to serve you in Kenton, Campbell, Pendleton, and Bracken counties. My priorities are family, freedom, and safety. You'll learn more, but I am a Christian, I'm a conservative, I'm a business owner, I'm an employer, I'm a proud wife, a mother of 6, and a grandmother of 5. I'm also the 6th of 12 children and the 14th of 89 grandchildren from farming families. We've raised beef cattle, firewood, hay, and some may know my Tuis family roots, where we have been processing turkeys, thousands of turkeys, over the 52 years of my life up to this day. So I'll look forward for you to learn more tonight, but I want to acknowledge that my parents and my childhood have taught me a great work ethic and that there is dignity in hard work that I plan to take to Frankfurt on your behalf. Thanks.
Thank you, Shelley. We turn now to Chris Robinson. Chris, you have 1 minute for your opening remarks. Go ahead. And don't forget to unmute yourself. That's okay. We've all done it. I think Mark and I had some trouble with it just last night. After a couple years, you think we'd all get the hang of this thing.
All right, got it. Hello, I'm Chris Robinson, and I reside in Grant Lake with my wife, Lisa. Thank you all for hosting this tonight. We live on the corner of my parents' family farm. It's a homestead. We all live here. My 97-year-old grandmother actually lives across the road from me, so we enjoy an extended family up here on the farm. We also own a small property in Augusta, so we're spread throughout the 24th district and understand it fairly well. Conservative, I'm a Christian. I'm a small business owner and I'm a veteran. And given that I've lived in this district all of my life, one of the things that I think I bring to it is a 30,000-foot view of the needs and the expectations for not only the urban part of our district, but also the rural part of our district. So I look forward to telling the public more about myself and ready to go tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. And we turn now to Jessica Neal. Good evening, Jessica. You have 1 minute for your opening remarks.
Great. Thank you so much for having me, Mark and Michael. Really appreciate the opportunity. Again, my name is Jessica Neal, and I am a 4th-generation resident of Campbell County. I actually grew up in Fort Thomas and graduated from Highlands and have lived in Cold Spring for the past 9 years. I am a small business owner in photography, and then I also work as an analyst at a marketing company. But before that, I also worked in the financial industry for 7 years. So I have kind of a wide variety of experience that I bring to the table. But I'm running because the future of our country and our Commonwealth hangs in the balance. We've all seen the news and the stories that are out there and all the problems that are facing us right now. And it's a critical time for people to stand up and take action to preserve the liberty that we all cherish. So I'm running on the issues of securing our elections, defending medical freedom, and advancing conservative values such as life at conception and school choice. We'll get into that more, but it's a pleasure to be here, and thank you so much.
Thank you, candidates, for your opening remarks. And again, we welcome Mark Payne, who is Lincoln KY politics and government reporter. He will have tonight's first question. A reminder for our audience and our candidates, each candidate will have 1 minute to respond to these questions. If one candidate should mention another candidate, then that mentioned candidate will get the opportunity to have 30 seconds to rebut. A reminder that full coverage of election 2022 in Northern Kentucky is available at linknky.com, and you can find even more inside the new edition of the Lincoln KY Reader, arriving in mailboxes in Boone, Kenton, and Campbell counties as we speak. We hope you like our second edition. So I'll turn it over to my colleague, Mark Payne, with tonight's first question, which will go to Chris Robinson. Mark, go ahead.
Thanks, Michael, and thanks for all the candidates joining us tonight. My first question is going to be on election integrity. Secretary of State Michael Adams has repeatedly said we have some of the safest elections in the country. Furthermore, bills, Senate Bill 216 and House Bill 564 were passed this legislative session, and they further strengthen election integrity in Kentucky. Would each of you talk about your stance on election integrity, and if familiar with either bill, discuss your thoughts on each?
All right, Chris, you have 1 minute.
Thank you. I'm not overly familiar with either of those bills. My understanding is that Michael Adams has indicated that our elections are secure and that we don't have issues that have created a significant problem in our election. I also understand that we asked in the Campbell County party, we asked Mike Jansen and Jim Blurson whether or not there were any issues in the last election that were significant enough to investigate in Campbell County, and they assured us that the elections were fine. So that'd be my piece on that.
Okay, thank you, Chris. We turn now to Jessica Neal. Jessica, you have 1 minute.
All right, thank you. Well, I do serve on the Election Integrity Committee of the Campbell County Republican Party. And what got me interested in joining that committee when it was first started was the concerns that I did see after the 2020 election. This has come out, widely across the country with various news stories about some of the fraud and the issues that we've seen. I recognize what Secretary of State Adams has said about this topic. However, there have been some concerning findings that we have found both just in our preliminary investigations within our county and then across the Commonwealth. I don't think it's something that should just be pushed under the rug without an investigation. Clearly, with these ongoing discussions and investigations across the country, we are seeing that people are wanting to look into this further. And I really feel this should be a bipartisan issue that both sides support to have secure elections. So I do support that. In terms of the bill, I am familiar with, let's see, it was Senate Bill 216. I don't think that bill was strong enough. It was, am I running out of time?
10 seconds, yeah.
Okay. Well, it doesn't go as far as I would like it to have gone. There's a lot of power that's concentrated in the hands of the Secretary of State, and an emphasis on things like meeting minutes from school boards. So I think it needed to go a little further, and we should investigate as fully as possible.
Thank you, Jessica Neal. We turn now to Shelley Funke Frommeyer with the same question. 1 minute, Shelley.
Yes, thank you. And of course, free and secure elections really are the bedrock of our constitutional republic. I do believe that it did not go far enough. Michael Adams has been very convincing to me that his efforts in his office have done an excellent job eliminating over 100,000 voters from our rolls. So I do believe that we're preparing for an excellent election May primary coming up. But I also recognize that we are still not hand counting every ballot. There's a lot of electronic uses that we're a bit concerned about. So the bipartisan effort, I think, is absolutely crucial. In conversations with all four of our county clerks, They have done a fantastic job preparing for this, and I believe we're looking forward to free and secure elections, but there's still work to be done. There's no doubt that there was some disinformation, and I recognize that's why some of these board meeting minutes and some of this information will be more readily available, but we haven't gone far enough yet. Kentucky is actually a model for the nation.
Thank you, Shelley. We'll move on to our next question, and this one is about charter schools. We saw in the Kentucky General Assembly this year the adoption of a piece of legislation that establishes some trial projects involving charter schools, specifically in Louisville and right here in Northern Kentucky. And then we saw Governor Beshear veto that legislation, and then the General Assembly override his veto. And so now we all wait to see what that means for our region and education and the presence of charter schools here. My question is your thoughts, specifically on that charter school legislation known as House Bill 9, what you hope comes from it, what you might be concerned about, and what voters should know about your position on it. For this question, we start with Jessica Neal. And Jessica, you have 1 minute.
All right. Well, I do support charter schools. I support parents having the option of sending their children wherever they're going to get the best education for them. Certain students do better in different learning environments, and certainly support having alternatives where they can be sent. In terms of the legislation, I do think we need to expand the opportunities that are available through charter schools within the state. So I'm definitely a proponent of expanding on that sort of avenue of education, and would be interested in pursuing other alternatives that can be implemented through legislation.
Thank you, Jessica Neal. We'll move to Shelley Funke Frommeyer. Shelley, you have 1 minute.
Well, as a mom that has made decisions to send my children both to public school and a private school, I stand with the dollar following the student. I feel that the charter school is valuable and it's a public school. So given the opportunity to create a more unique public school that could serve a unique set of circumstances is excellent, it's valuable, and it will continue to put Kentucky in a creative approach to education. And we desperately need that to improve our academic performance. I'm very supportive.
Thank you, Shelley Frommeyer. Let's turn now to Chris Robinson. Chris, you have 1 minute.
So House Bill 9 is now law, and with charter schools, I think we get expanded educational opportunities for students. We have 467,000 plus students in the state of Kentucky. One of the things that we need to make sure that we're doing is expanding those opportunities, not just in our urban areas, but how are we going to find those opportunities to expand in our rural areas. So House Bill 9, while it will benefit some of our northern schools in the kind of the River Cities region, you know, we have the number 2 and the number 19 school, public school in the state in Campbell County. And ultimately, we need to make sure that our smaller independent schools and our rural schools are also looked at.
All right, thank you, candidates, for your answers to that question. We'll move back to another question, starting with the same order that we had at the very beginning, starting with Shelley Funke Frommeyer. This question is about infrastructure. Obviously, infrastructure is on the minds of a lot of people. We've seen some significant federal investment on the way, some significant state investment on the way, local investments on the way as well. I want to know, as candidates campaigning across the 24th Senate district, what are the biggest infrastructure issues you see in that district that you will hope to address as the senator representing that district? And Shelley Funke Frommeyer, we'll start with you. You have 1 minute.
Well, I love the fact that I live in Alexandria and my office is in Covington. So I do travel the AA highway. So I experience an infrastructure need every day. That 275 interchange as it's coming to the AA is a real need. But as you head a little further south, so is the 536, giving us access more readily to the significant, the fastest growing jobs in the area in Boone County. So strengthening that 536 connection onto the Alexandria Pike. And then you head a little further south, and we need even more infrastructure in Pendleton County to get those workers to I-75. But if you head north, you hit the 4th Street Bridge, and that will be crucial with some of the finest development we're seeing in the river cities leading into Newport, but also leading to the Brent Spence Bridge. At the end of the day, the Brent Spence Bridge is number 1. Perhaps 4th Street is number 2. And then, as I mentioned, the other projects. We have some real infrastructure needs.
Thank you, Shelley Funke Frommeyer. We'll turn now to Chris Robinson. 1 minute for you, Chris.
So infrastructure needs in the district are a big deal. The population growth within the northern to the central part of Campbell County is pretty much full. When you pop over into the unincorporated portions of Campbell County, we start to have major issues with access to water. 961 houses in Campbell County that don't have water, about 119 in Pendleton County. Not good broadband all the way through the entire district south of Alexandria. Part of our issue is that without good infrastructure, we have an inability to recruit businesses. We also have an inability to retain talent that we have here. So ultimately, broadband, water, and sewer allows us to create opportunities to grow and bring and recruit and retain businesses and workforce right here in our hometown. Great north-south corridors. We've got to do something about the east and west corridors here. We have some east-west issues.
Thank you, Chris Robinson. Jessica Neal, the floor is now yours. You have 1 minute.
Well, infrastructure obviously is a very important topic, and I do agree with some of the points that the previous candidates have mentioned about the opportunities that we have to develop the infrastructure within our area. One of the issues that I think is not talked about a lot during this discussion is the impact on our workforce right now, specifically regarding the mandates that have been still ongoing with a lot of employers. And with that, I just am worried about people having the opportunity to keep a job. A lot of businesses are still implementing mandates. And so my issue is to stand up for those individuals to be able to have a choice in terms of the mandates, whether or not to get a vaccine or something like that, before we can actually address the people who are going to be able to implement this infrastructure. I also am just concerned about the cost that is involved with some of these projects. I'm a fiscal conservative and support, not increasing our taxes. So if we can find a way to do this that's not going to directly impact in a negative way the taxpayer, then we can certainly pursue those discussions. So that's what I would say.
Thank you, candidates, for your answers to that question. And you are watching live coverage of primary election 22 across Northern Kentucky from Lincoln, KY. I'm Michael Monks with Lincoln, KY politics and government reporter Mark Payne. Tonight's forum features the Republican candidates for Kentucky Senate District 24. This is a district currently occupied by State Senator Will Schroeder, who is not seeking re-election. So we have 3 Republican candidates seeking the party's nomination for this year's election, and they are Chris Robinson, Shelley Funke Frommeyer, and Jessica Neal. We have full coverage of primary election season across Northern Kentucky at linknky.com. It includes articles written about the races by our team of journalists here. It also includes op-eds submitted by the candidates where they state in their own words why they are seeking the offices all across the region that they are. And be sure to check out the new print edition, our second of the Lincoln KY Reader. We've got sample ballots in there as well for you to be prepared for when you go to the polls. And again, I'm Michael Monks with Republican candidates for Kentucky Senate District 24. We move on now to our next question. I yield the floor to my colleague, Mark Payne.
The legislature passed House Bill 3, the omnibus abortion bill, this session. Currently, there is a temporary injunction on the bill to prevent its implementation. The Supreme Court signaled via a leaked draft opinion that it would overturn Roe v. Wade, which would trigger the fetal heartbeat bill in Kentucky, effectively ending abortion in Kentucky. Would each of you give your stance on abortion and your thoughts on both pieces of legislation? And we are starting with Chris.
I'm 100% pro-life. I think that the national discussion around abortion, certainly the national discussion today, is interesting, and you wonder about the motivations behind that. My understanding is that this brief was going to be released in June, so whether or not it was released in early May or June may or may not make an indication for the midterms. But ultimately, the thing that we need to do is to continue to protect and promote all the opportunities for pro-life as we seek it.
Thank you, Chris. We'll turn now to Jessica Neal for this question.
Thank you. Well, I am also 100% pro-life. I'm endorsed by both the Kentucky Right to Life and the Northern Kentucky Right to Life. So regardless of what happens at the federal level and when it makes it back to the states, I am in support of getting rid of abortion. We have seen so many countless lives destroyed by abortion. And so I would fight for the rights of the unborn and would support legislation that would seek to eliminate the option for abortions.
Thank you, Jessica Neal. We conclude this question with Shelley Funke Frommeyer. Shelley, you have 1 minute.
So I'm also endorsed by the Kentucky Right to Life Victory PAC, as well as the Northern Kentucky Right to Life. And I'm completely committed to the rights of the unborn. My 12-year-old reminded me today that 100% of the people that are for abortion have already been born. Who's going to stand for the unborn? And that's what we do. That's what I intend to do. And I will vote on every piece of legislation that comes my way in favor of pro-life legislation.
Thank you, candidates, for your responses to that question. Let's talk about cannabis. That is something that saw a little bit of movement in Frankfurt in the recently concluded 2022 General Assembly session, but not any type that offers us access to cannabis, either medically or recreationally. What we've ended up with is a commission formed to further study this plant and its potential use in Kentucky. So I want to know your position on cannabis. Are you in favor of medical? Are you in favor of recreational? What are your concerns? What are your hopes? And each of you will have a minute to respond to that. We'll start with Jessica Neal. Jessica, you have 1 minute.
I am in favor of medical marijuana. I have seen, I don't agree with the fact that we need more research. I've seen countless studies, and I've had personal friends with different chronic illnesses who have benefited from having this as an option. When it's properly prescribed through a doctor and kind of regulated through that avenue. I'm not for actually fully legalizing marijuana. There's still some concerns I have in terms of that regulation, but definitely with the medical marijuana, I would support a bill that would allow that to be an opportunity for people.
Thank you, Jessica Neal. We'll turn now to Shelley Funke Frommeyer. Shelley, your minute starts now.
As a legislator, I'm always going to put individual liberty at the forefront of any decision I make. And to me, individual liberty means giving people the right to make choices that you yourself wouldn't necessarily make. I personally don't believe in smoking marijuana. However, I don't believe that the government has the right to dictate to people what they put in their bodies. And liberty isn't something we reserve only for decisions that we like. I am in support of medical marijuana, and I am in support of legalizing recreational marijuana.
Thank you, Shelley Funke Frommeyer. And we'll conclude this question with Chris Robinson. Chris, you have 1 minute.
So I'm a licensed professional clinical counselor. That license allows me to assess, treat, diagnose these issues. I'm well versed in substance abuse and misuse. House Bill 604 that was put up by Kim Moser is what you're referring to. The problem with medical marijuana is that because it's a Schedule I narcotic, the federal government keeps it tied up. We have an impossibility to be able to transact business in a legal way because as long as we keep it on the Schedule I, you can't do anything with it. It's considered to be non-medical and it has a high propensity for abuse. The other Schedule I drugs are also heroin, LSD, peyote, and et cetera, et cetera. So until the federal government removes the constraints that are binding up the process of legalizing medical marijuana, we have a really difficult time saying that we're going to create an opportunity for medical marijuana without the research and without the long-term studies.
Thank you, Chris Robinson. This is the Republican Candidates Forum for Kentucky Senate District 24. And Mark Payne, I don't know if you know this, and this may not be accurate, but I believe Kentucky Senate District 24 has more self-serve car washes than any other Senate district in the entire state of Kentucky. So now it's your turn to ask a question. If you want to ask a question about car washes, you feel free.
I don't know the answer to that question, Michael. I know that they did get rid of the self-serve car wash in Bellevue. So that's one less car wash.
Hey, they
But
told us a
my
Waffle House was coming there, and now it's not. We're getting a Taco Bell instead. So maybe you can ask the candidates about their position on Waffle House.
Correct. We'll save that question for last. I'm going to go ahead and jump into income tax. And starting in 2023, the income tax will drop 0.5% until it's slowly phased out over the course of 10 years. While the legislation will slowly rid the state of income tax, it widens the tax base in certain areas, such as adding a sales tax or user fee for car rental services like Uber and digital services like Airbnb. Would each of you talk about your stance on income tax? And we're going to start with Shelley. You have 1 minute.
Yes, thank you. As a financial advisor, and I'm also a certified financial planner, I've got the financial brain on this and am very passionate and committed to scrapping the income tax. I do believe that when it comes to spending money, that your family is more likely to make better decisions than the government will. And I want to inspire that income generating activity. I think we need that in Kentucky. We need to inspire more workers in Kentucky, and scrapping the income tax will help that. And then, as you said, Mark, once you broaden that base, instead of only 42 out of 100 of us paying into income tax, you'll have 100 out of 100 paying into some broader use type of tax. I believe that is an excellent path we're on, and I'm excited to get there and see it to the finish line.
Thank you for that. We'll turn now to Chris Robinson. Chris, you have 1 minute.
So the reduction of the income tax, I think, is an excellent thing. The states that have consumptive-based taxes, Tennessee, Florida, Texas, they're booming. And what we know is that Tennessee attributes probably 3 to 4% of its growth over top of Kentucky in the last 10 years to a consumptive-based tax. So it's an opportunity to generate additional revenue, keep more money in people's pockets. Big fan of consumptive taxes and finding additional income streams.
Thank you, Chris Robinson. And we'll conclude that question with Jessica Neal. Jessica, you have 1 minute.
Yes, I also support abolishing the income tax. I'm in favor of people having more money in their pockets. I've seen numerous ways that people have proposed that we can accomplish this, and I'm certainly open to looking at those options as a legislator, because I do believe people know how to spend their own money, and the government doesn't need to be taking as much. I feel like we can accomplish things by eliminating wasteful spending. And we all know there's plenty of that in the government. So I would be up to pursuing that option, at least initially, to find and audit different parts of the federal and state government to pursue options where we can eliminate the income tax.
LincolnKY.com is your home for full coverage of election in Northern Kentucky, primary and general. It is just 2 weeks away, the primary election is. We will have live coverage on our website and on our social media streams throughout the evening as the results start to roll in. So be sure to be prepared to join us on election night, LincolnKY.com or Lincoln KY on Facebook. I'm Michael Monks with Mark Payne and the Republican candidates for Kentucky Senate District 24, the primary, just 2 weeks away. Chris Robinson, Shelley Funke Frommeyer, and Jessica Neal. Now, this is a Republican primary. It is to select a nominee to run for a seat being vacated by a Republican. And there are Republican candidates running in primaries all across the region and all across the state. But it seems like there's a bit of an identity crisis on what a Republican is at the national level, maybe at the state level, here locally even. We're seeing some intra-party squabbles about what it means to be a Republican. And I am curious about each of your perspectives on that. I do note that we lost Chris for just a moment, a little technical glitch there. We'll bring him back in and let him connect. And I'll restate the question. It is his turn to go first. So, and now that it looks like Chris Robinson has rejoined us, totally fine. It happens. Just make sure that your camera is flipped back around so the audience can see you got your head on straight. It's okay. I think all of us know about the woes of Zoom after 2 years of using the platform. Don't sweat it. My question, Chris, is about Republicans. What is it? What's up with the intra-party squabbles here locally? What's up with like the way people characterize their Republicanism these days, the way some people are called rhinos, the way some people are called patriots? What does it mean to you, Chris Robinson? We'll start with you with 1 minute. What does it mean to be a Republican today?
I think the Republicans are conservative-minded, steady, strong, and straightforward leaders. We don't get too far out of bounds emotionally. We're looking for opportunities to be able to collaborate with people while at the same time kind of maintaining our value system. Our value system is key to how we function. Foundational core, I think, that we agree with, and we go off on these fractional pieces that somehow separate us. But ultimately, to do as Republicans is figure out how we can be stronger together, and ultimately some of these factionalizing things that occur probably weaken the party overall. So I think we're looking to figure out how we can have strong, straightforward, and sensible leadership.
Thank you, Chris Robinson. We'll turn now to Jessica Neal. You have 1 minute to tell us what a Republican is and maybe what a Republican isn't.
Well, we certainly have seen a lot of polarization, even within each party, the two major parties, over the past several years. And I think right now we're just undergoing a big change. And, it is kind of shaking out to reveal kind of where we do stand. I know that people are very frustrated with some of the ways that, especially within the Republican Party, there's certain votes that people have taken that don't align with traditional conservative values. One of the examples that I can think of right now is when House Bill 28 went to the Senate and died in committee. It was killed in committee by Republicans. And that bill was going to offer some protections to people who, through employers or schools, so that they didn't have to take a shot. And I know this is one pigeonholed example, but it is representative of the various liberties that can be taken from us, in the blink of an eye. So I think people do have a valid frustration with the way that their own party is handling things. And so there is kind of a movement of people who are trying to step up. And I'm one of those people who is tired of the government not following through and the party not following through on their promises to their people. And we're trying to make that change.
Thank you, Jessica Neal. And we'll conclude this question with Shelley Funke Frommeyer. What is a Republican? What isn't a Republican?
Yes, and I'm sad by the movement of people that are spinning nastiness and lies and creating some harshness in such a conservative community where we're meant to be the party of limited government. So asking the government to chime in seems a problem when we're in fact recognizing we have God-given rights and individual freedoms to make our own decisions. And I think that's the hallmark of a Republican. And I think that's a hallmark that we work together, we're engaged, we attack issues, not people. But this movement seems to be very people attacking, not issue attacking. And I want to stand firm on my conservative, limited government mentality and be positive. Let's stay engaged and solve problems, not attack people.
Thank you, candidates, for your answers to that question. I hand the mic back over to my colleague, Mark Payne, Lincoln KY politics and government reporter, for our next question. Mark.
Thank you, Michael. We're going to jump back into another education question. Senate Bill 1, which was sponsored by Northern Kentucky Senator John Schickel, moves decision-making power in schools from site-based decision-making councils over to superintendents. It would allow them to make major school decisions such as teachers, curriculum, and textbooks. It also added language from Senate Bill 138 that requires schools to teach 24 documents recommended by the Ashbrook Center in Ohio. Opponents of 138 say it's the anti-critical race theory bill. Would each of you talk a bit about your stances on Senate Bill 1 with its added language from Senate Bill 138? And we are starting with Jessica. You have 1 minute.
Well, regarding Senate Bill 1, I do not support all the power being put into the hands of the superintendent. It's an unelected position, and whereas the site-based decision-making is elected. And I do think we need to retain that power for parents to be able to express their concerns and, especially at the voting booth, with who they're going to elect to lead the schools in terms of curriculum and that sort of thing. Now, in terms of 138, I am firmly against the teaching of critical race theory. I do think that should be banned. I don't think this bill went far enough. I am glad to see that there were more historical documents that were added, but I do think we are still lacking in some of the options that are being taught to students. I think history needs to be taught in all of its good and bad, but I do think that we need to refrain from such divisive concepts being taught in our schools, such as critical race theory. From what I've studied and looked into, it is a very divisive topic, and I think we just need to get back to the very core essence of what we teach students so that they can be successful in life.
Thank you, Jessica Neal. We'll turn now to Shelley Funke Frommeyer to answer that question. Shelley, you have 1 minute.
Michael, I'm not as familiar as I would like to be to answer that question in enough detail. What I want to acknowledge is the importance of having parents involved in the decision making. And as this last 6 months has transpired, and I've attended a number of school board meetings, I've been disturbed by the superintendent and the school board pushing back that there isn't curriculum decision-making occurring at the school board level and at the superintendent's level, that it really is occurring in the site-based council. And I do want a person accountable that can be fired and then can be hired to reflect the needs of that district or of that community. So I do like that a person's livelihood depends on whether they are serving the needs of their community. And I do like more local decision making. That's very important to me. So I reflect on Schickel's efforts to get more control that actually allows a higher level of accountability on what is being taught in the schools.
Thank you, Shelley Funke Frommeyer. We conclude this question with Chris Robinson. Chris, you have 1 minute.
So about 30 years ago, CARA gave site-based stakeholders opportunities to have input into the curriculum. And at least to some extent, that's the reason that we've ended up with some of the CRT and revisionist history curriculum in some of the schools. The SB 1 allows that superintendent to have that direct hiring authority and the control over the curriculum with input from the site base. So ultimately, you do have one accountable person at the head of the entire school system. And to be honest, these people that are in these positions that we hire for these positions, they've been trained in curriculum development and the administration of curriculum. So I think that with input from the site-based people, the stakeholders in the game, the superintendent is ultimately responsible. So SB 1 does realign that power with that superintendent.
And thank you, candidates, for your answers to that question. Link nky.com for full coverage of NKY primary election news. And I will turn it back to my good friend, Mark Payne, for another question to the candidates.
So the legislature ended the COVID state of emergency this session through Senate Joint Resolution 150. Opponents of the resolution said it would prevent Kentucky from being able to receive federal funds such as $50 million in SNAP benefits in May. It's important to note that the state has received a financial windfall of federal funds during the COVID pandemic from the CARES Act under former President Trump and the American Rescue Plan Act under President Biden. What would you have done differently during the pandemic as a legislator?
And we'll start with Shelley Funke Frommeyer for this one. You have 1 minute.
Well, I would have brought our legislators to Frankfurt immediately. I was considered an essential employer as a financial advisor. There's nothing more essential to me than collecting and printing new money that created an inflation nightmare that we're currently experiencing, and really acknowledging and recognizing what challenges do need to be solved. We had a bit of a kingship situation, and I'm grateful that we no longer have a kingship situation and our legislatures are back in session, but we needed to get in session faster and force the Supreme Court to make a decision quicker. Took them far too long. I just think we needed to be firmer, faster.
Thank you, Shelley Funke Frommeyer. We'll move now to Chris Robinson. Chris, you have 1 minute.
So I think there's strength in numbers, and I think that face-to-face opportunities, whether or not those were supposed to be safe or not safe, but ultimately strength in numbers would have potentially had a change in how quickly we could Bringing people back would have been an opportunity to get those people together and have those face-to-face negotiations and potentially create a resolution of the situation much sooner.
Thank you, Chris. We'll conclude this round of questions with Jessica Neal. You have 1 minute, Jessica.
Yes, it definitely happened way too slowly. We needed to pass this legislation a lot sooner. People have been hurting through all of this. And I do think it would be something where we need the opportunity to get back to being able to call ourselves back into session, where the legislature can meet and pass these bills and things that are actually going to take place sooner than what's been happening. People have been out of jobs. People have been needing that relief that to be able to get assistance for, whether that be with the mandates and things or financially. People need that help, and we definitely need to not be procrastinating and providing that to our constituents.
And you are watching live coverage of primary election season right here in Northern Kentucky at Lincoln KY. I'm Michael Monks alongside Mark Payne, and the Republican candidates seeking the nomination in Kentucky Senate District 24. We have Jessica Neal, Shelley Funke Frommeyer, and Chris Robinson. Coming up tomorrow night, Wednesday night, we have the Republican candidates for House District 69, incumbent state representative Adam Koenig, who faces a challenge from Erlanger City Councilman Steve Doan. And then on Thursday night, we have the candidates running for Newport City Commission. There's enough candidates there this year to force a primary. You'll meet them on Thursday night. Our last question tonight for our Republican candidates in Kentucky Senate District 24 is about maybe the temperature in the room and how we talk about politics. And is the rhetoric too hot? And how do we return to civil discourse in this country? And I'd like some perspective from each of you on that. If you think it's gotten too hot, if you think we're not listening well enough to one another, and what do we need to do to improve the way we talk about these important issues in our community, in our state, in our country, in the world? And to start, we'll go to Chris Robinson. Chris, you have 1 minute.
So I think there's a fair amount of vitriolic rhetoric, I'd say, at times that goes on. I don't think that there's a lot of value in group and mob mentality. I think that we need to be able to sit down and have differences of opinions. Differences of opinions help us create better outcomes. Is it too hot in the room? Is it too hot out there? Here's what I'd say about that. If you're going to take it on the chin once in a while, but you also have to be a good enough leader and a strong enough leader above it, not stoop to some of the things that are going on. Be very clear in your direction, your vision, and block out the noise. I think that's what strong leaders do, and that's what I intended to continue to do.
Thank you, Chris. Jessica Neal, you have 1 minute.
I think there certainly is a lot of vitriol and dissent amongst the ranks, even on both sides. I don't know that there's a clear-cut answer as to how we solve this problem. The only thing that I can come to as a solution is our country needs to return to God. And I'm a believer, I'm a Christian. And until we get our morals right, that's just the natural state of man, is to attack people and not be as kind as they should be. So for me personally, that's my moral compass, is to align myself with Christ. And I think that's a lot of what has made the Republican Party strong in the past, is that faith-based piece of it. So I think if we can get back to that, that's going to definitely lower the temperature and just bring a little more harmony in terms of how we handle our discussions.
Thank you, Jessica Neal. We conclude this question with Shelley Funke Frommeyer. Shelley, you have 1 minute.
Yes, I'm a strong Christian, and I do live by the 10 commandments. Love one another is probably most important. My 52-year-old Shelley behaves a little different than my 30-year-old Shelley. And I think what I've learned is bringing some of those issues to the table. And I love the forum, Mark and Michael, that you've created today, because you have given us the opportunity with the same questions to kind of address and be more open in who we are as people. And given those, creating those forums for openness, for transparency, so that we're not hiding underneath negativity and highlights and just, that flash that seems to get attention. Let's just be real and let's talk and let's attack issues, not people.
And thank you for your responses to that question. And that concludes the question portion of the evening. And of course, you can read Mark Payne's outstanding coverage of the legislature and a lot of the legislative races around town at lincolnky.com. There's more than what you just saw tonight. But now we will move into the closing remarks from our candidates seeking the Republican nomination in Kentucky Senate District 24, which is made up of Campbell, Pendleton, and Bracken counties, and a little sliver of Kenton County. So in this final part of our forum this evening, we give the floor to Jessica Neal for 1 minute closing remarks.
Thank you. And thank you again for hosting the forum. I just want to reiterate that I'm a grassroots candidate. I am someone who has not just said with my words, but has actually done with my actions the things that I hope to bring to Frankfort. And that is my commitment to upholding the will of the people and fighting for liberty. Over the past year and beyond that, I have been a strong champion of promoting our rights and liberties, especially during COVID. I have been a person that's gone to many of the protests in support of the medical and healthcare workers who were going to lose their job if they didn't take a shot. And people, I believe, have the right to determine what kind of medical care they receive in terms of a vaccine. So I'm someone who actually has the track record of going in and fighting for these issues, and I don't intend to stop now. In addition, I'm very passionate about education and preserving just a well-rounded curriculum for our kids. I have a background in education with my schooling, and I'm very passionate about making sure that we are serving all of Kentucky's kids and having the best curriculum possible. So I have gone to a lot of the school board meetings and that kind of a thing to stand up and organize letter writing campaigns and things of that nature to make sure that we do have the best programs in place. But I would say if you are looking for someone who is going to be committed to fighting for liberty, check out my website. My name is Jessica Neal. The website is nealforky.com, and I thank you for your vote on May 17th.
Thank you, Jessica Neal. We turn now to Shelley Funke Frommeyer. 1 minute for your closing remarks.
So I'm a proud 30-year mother and 34 years of business and community engagement. And I'm ready to put my experience to work in Frankfort and getting us back on track with our American dream. As a constitutional conservative who believes that the rights come from our Creator, not government, I do promise to uphold the right for you to bear arms, that Second Amendment rights, as well as opposing unconstitutional mandates. I will always be on the side of individual liberty. I promise to defend the police, not defund them. This is a special place, Kenton, Campbell, Bracken, Pendleton, and these counties deserve a leader who can represent them and their values. The values instilled in me as a little girl working on the farm in Demossville are the same values that I will bring to Frankfort. So I'm Shelley Funke Frommeyer. I'm experienced, I'm persistent, I'm engaged, and I hope that I've earned your vote for May 17th. Thank you.
Thank you, Shelley Funke Frommeyer. We conclude with Chris Robinson. Chris, 1 minute for your closing remarks.
Thank you. Leadership's a quality that I value. Our citizens and our neighbors here in the district deserve somebody who will be a strong leader, who will look and listen at their needs and their wants. I've lived here all my life, and it's important to understand that a fair amount of this district is either rural and spreads to a much higher urban area. We need to make sure that what we're doing is protecting all the rights of our citizens always. I am a constitutional person. I'm a pro-Second Amendment and pro-life. I think we've established that. I also have experience being a veteran and a person who's worked in several different industries. So that leadership experience throughout my lifetime is what I'm able. A steady, strong leader that has great values and understands the needs of the district that we've lived in. So I ask for your support on May 17th. I'm Chris Robinson for the 24th Senate District. Thank you.
And those are your candidates for the Republican nomination in Kentucky Senate District 24 primary election night. 2 weeks from today, 14 days, and people will be going to the polls. There are some early voting opportunities, so be sure to check out lincolnky.com or check in with your local county clerk to find out specifically where you're supposed to vote and when you can vote ahead of Election Day if that is something that you would like to do. We do appreciate all the candidates for taking the time out of their busy schedules here in the waning days of the campaign to answer some questions from Link for potential voters and viewers around the region. My thanks to candidates Shelley Funke Frommeyer, Jessica Neal, and Chris Robinson. Thanks to all of you for being with us.
Thank you.
And of course, thanks to Mark Payne from Lincoln KY, our politics and government reporter, does an outstanding job. Read his coverage at lincolnky.com. It's not just these forums. We've got coverage of all of the races all across Northern Kentucky. Be sure to check that out. And while you're there, sign up for the daily link. We'll send the news every day to your inbox in the morning. And be on the lookout for the Link NKY reader coming to a mailbox near you if it hasn't already. For Mark Payne and all of us here at Link, I'm Michael Monks. Thanks for watching. We'll talk again soon.